Welcome to Classroom Management Setting the Tone. After you complete this session, there's a brief quiz you need to take to check for understanding. 80% or higher is required for successful completion. By the end of this session, you will be able to explain why setting the tone is important, generate ideas for how to lay the groundwork, decide on additional areas of focus for the first class meeting that go beyond academic considerations, list practices that will make a more welcoming environment for your students. Classroom management is defined as the methods and strategies that an instructor uses to maintain a classroom environment that is conducive to student success and learning. Although there are many strategies involved in managing a classroom, a common denominator is making sure that students feel that they are in an environment which allows them to achieve. Setting just the right tone with your students can be very tricky. You want to be yourself, but you also need to keep in mind that you are the facilitator of the class. You want students to be comfortable with you, but you don't want them to get so comfortable that they feel you are easily controlled. So, how do you maintain a good balance? How can you develop a positive classroom environment that also embraces structure and accountability? And how can you set the right tone for your class? Here are a couple of steps you can take to set the tone for your class and help decrease disruptive student behaviors. First, establish procedures. To do this, arrive early to set up the classroom. Post instructions telling students what to do before class begins. Instructions such as sign in, introduce yourself, and find a seat. Arrive early enough to greet students at the door, not only the first day, but every day. Use an entrance table. If you are using a sign-in roster, have that and a pin on the entrance table. Place anything students need to pick up throughout the class on this table. To avoid FERPA violations, do not use a sign-in roster that has student ID numbers on it. Also, do not leave graded work out for others to view. Create a personable, professional environment at all times. Chat with your students as they are entering your classroom. If you are frazzled and non-communicative, as opposed to smiling, sincere, and upbeat, your students will notice and respond accordingly. Make students feel welcome. All students, no matter what the class, want to feel welcomed by their instructor and fellow students. It is important that the instructor set the tone from the first day as to how the class will be structured, including how the instructor will be addressed, first name, last name, and title, etc., and how the students will be addressed. Some students will be reluctant to ask questions if they do not know how to address the instructor. Create a Today We Will list. The list should remain visible at all times so as to keep the class on track and let students know what they're responsible for if they have to arrive late or leave early. One recurring theme for classroom management is the importance of proper planning and avoiding classroom management issues. A good plan with plenty of diversity in activities and opportunities for students to experience learning for themselves goes a long way toward preventing some of the problems that arise from students becoming bored, leaving early, or talking in class at inappropriate times. Our final session on day 4 will go into detail regarding planning for your course sessions. As an instructor at Baker College, it is important for you to ensure an appropriate pace and effective use of classroom time through course session planning. Keep the discussion and activities focused on the student learning outcomes, or SLOs, and create and maintain a positive learning environment. Take time in the first session with your students to go over the student learning outcomes, Baker College institutional policies, and the assignment summary. These documents are the roadmap of where the course will be headed. It's also the contract between you and your students. No need to read every item word for word. Remember that many students will already be familiar with most of the Baker College policies. They'll want to know about your course, your policies, and your expectations. You can hit the highlights or try an activity to review the course requirements. You could break students into discussion groups of 2 or 3, assigning each group a section that they would have to communicate with the rest of the class, perhaps in a creative way. Or you could do a scavenger hunt where you give them a list of questions that they have to find the answers for in these documents. Make it creative, make it fun, and help them understand that these documents are designed to help them reach their learning goals. By going over these documents with your students, they will see that you have clearly defined your expectations, and it gives you a chance to clarify any questions they may have. There are multiple elements involved in creating a positive learning environment. They include respect diverse backgrounds and learning styles. For example, don't make the only student, the only man, only woman, only African American, etc., responsible for the minority point of view. Teach with various examples that everyone can relate to and in a variety of methods. Consistent and fair treatment of all students. Consistency is key. If you accept late homework for one, regardless of the excuse, you must accept it for all. Maintain confidentiality and privacy in student records and issues. Don't hand back papers where students can see the grades of other students. Have private discussions via email or out of range of other students. Ensure that the classroom is a safe, welcoming place for students. This means being positive, upbeat, and supporting the opportunity for students to learn. As instructors, we need to be careful not to ridicule, roll our eyes, or be sarcastic. Model appropriate classroom behavior. Respond appropriately when a student makes a comment or voices a complaint. Students will often take behavior cues from their instructor, so it is important to dress professionally, speak professionally, act professionally, while being open and supportive. Many ask, why would you spend time using an icebreaker? In theory, the college classroom is strictly an intellectual and rational setting. College classrooms are complex interpersonal arenas in which a variety of emotional reactions can influence how much is learned and how the participants feel about it. Spending a little time to help students feel comfortable is a wise investment in any course. An icebreaker can be used on the first day to begin the process of developing an environment that is comfortable and conducive to learning. Icebreakers as a welcome and warm-up exercise can help remove obstacles to communication, bring people together, and create a sense of community that will prove to be invaluable during class sessions. Here are a couple of icebreakers that you might use on the first day to warm up your students. An autograph sheet with items that might apply to many individuals, such as wears contacts, born in February, middle child, loves colored blue, has brown eyes, has a dog, etc. Have your students circulate around the room, yourself as well, to find someone who meets each category. The first one with all items signed is the winner. You can also use a bingo sheet where relevant information about either a lecture or the Baker College institutional policies can be used to acquaint students with one another. Student interviews, where students are paired up to ask each other predetermined questions or even questions determined by the students at the beginning of the class session. Then have them introduce each other to the class. These types of openers are particularly helpful if there will be class discussions and small group activities because the students will feel as if they already had a chance to get to know one another, as well as the instructor in some small way. To reflect on how you plan to interact and engage your students, I think Kiam Ganat provides some insight. I've come to the frightening conclusion that I am the decisive element in the classroom. It's my personal approach that creates the climate. It's my daily mood that makes the weather. As a teacher, I possess a tremendous power to make a student's life miserable or joyous. I can be a tool of torture or an instrument of inspiration. I can humiliate or humor, hurt or heal. In all situations, it is my response that decides whether a crisis will be escalated or de escalated and a student humanized or dehumanized. The classroom environment demands as much attention as the student learning outcomes and assessment. As you plan for your course, be mindful of ways in which you can create a learning environment that fosters a place where your students will feel a sense of belonging and inspiration. A high quality classroom environment embodies elements that support both the physical and affective needs of the students, setting the stage for a dynamic teaching and learning environment. Dysfunctional student behavior can occur in many forms. Some forms are more disruptive than others, but even the most minor infraction can affect not only that student, but others as well. It is your responsibility, and not an easy one, to do as much as you can to prevent these behaviors and then deal with them if they do occur. Although it is not a guarantee, steps to prevent disruptions like setting the tone, creating a positive learning environment, and managing your time and activities does result in disruptions being less likely to occur. This groundwork will start you along the process of classroom management. Remember, if you are ever unsure of how to deal with a disruptive student or situation, you can contact your program official or immediate supervisor for some suggestions and feedback. The groundwork you laid to help prevent disruptive student behavior will be critical to your ability to continue to motivate your students. The struggle is not in how to motivate your students to learn. The struggle is in creating lessons and classroom environments that focus and attract students' intrinsic motivation, thus increasing the likelihood students will actively engage in the learning. Your continuous improvement in providing interesting, relevant assignments that help link the student's coursework with their future career, eliminating busy work and ensuring that students are spending time on things that count for their grade will not only manage your course, but create a positive learning environment. This concludes our session. Please take the quiz in Module 3.